there's the language of the military, right? And that the soldiers use, and
definitely.
So it's something to use, I guess, and play with as well.
Well, yeah, there's a there's a very particular way that the military speaks. There's a lot of profanity, a lot of acronyms.
Yeah.
So my mother. She read the book. She said, I liked it very much. You used a lot of words you weren't allowed to use growing up. It's the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
But trying to get the rhythms of the speech and the way that people interpret that experience. And with the profanity, there's a thing where you got an 18 or 19-year-old person who's seeing a lot of the things that happen in war, which are obscene.
Yeah.
The language that they're going to use to try and describe that is going to match it. And so the sort of young grunt character is going to talk in one way. An older chaplain who's trying to work through some of the things that the guys are dealing with, he's going to talk in an entirely different way. And that was very important for me, trying to figure out who these people were.
One of the things that comes through is, on the one hand, a kind of cluelessness sometimes from somebody serving. You don't know what's going on. What are you doing here? But then an intense awareness and intelligence of what they're all about, and an awareness of the world in a way that we don't often see it.
Right.
There's a section there of the character talking about walking down the street, and I could see a dime.
I could spot a dime in the street 20 yards away.
Yeah.
Which was told to me by a friend of mine who'd served in the Second Battle of Fallujah. Right.
Because he's on patrol and.
And it matters. He has to be that aware, not just to protect himself, but also the men around him.
Yeah.
And then he carries that state with him. When he comes back home, immediately after he comes back home.
Yeah, and so much of the stories become about coming back home, and some of the difficulties of that. Was that hard for you?
It's I was a staff officer. It wasn't as hard as it was for some other people, certainly, that I knew. But it's definitely there's a disconnect. It's very peculiar to go back to New York. Right, and I live next to TQ Surgical, where they would bring in wounded, not just Americans, but also Iraqis, sometimes insurgents. And, to see that level of violence done to people, and then walk down Madison Avenue with zero sense that you're at war, that's very strange. It's also strange to get out of the military, go live your civilian life. I went into the Northeast. Every once in a while, somebody tells me I'm the first Iraq or Afghanistan veteran they've met.
Really?
Right?
Yeah.
And yet people who are going back time and time again, right? Sometimes you find out that something very bad has happened to them.
Well, there is, of course, a lot of talk about the disconnect between the military and the civilian population. I mean, you see it.
Right.
Is it something that worries you?
Well, it does, and I think that's part of the reason why I wanted to write the book, was to try and talk with people and start conversations about the experience of war, and to invite people to imagine different experiences, because it's important just for understanding and thinking about the young veterans in our communities, but also Marines don't issue themselves orders. We as a country are responsible, we as citizens are responsible for what we push our elected leaders to do.